Hello, my friends, and welcome to a special edition of Izzy Retro Reviews. This is horror, the best of horror anime month, and, well, I wanted to do this yesterday, but I'm going to do this today. We're going to look at the top 7, or maybe top 10. Yeah, let's make it top 10. We're going to look at the top 10 horror anime ever devised by man, or in anime standards. And we're gonna basically kick things off with I'm gonna start with 2 days. So the first one I believe is the space opera classic of 1980, Densetsu Kyojin Ideon, or Space Runaway Ideon. Now, believe it or not, it is somewhat of it is a horror anime, because with the interest of Yoshiyuki Tomino's classic Mobile Suit Gundam, well, he thought he'd do better if he did another series, and it's called Space Runaway Ideon, or Legendary Giant God Ideon. The story tells of the exploits of Cosmo Yuki and the crew of the solo ship as they find a 3-part mecha that, when formed together, makes a giant robot by the name of the Ideon. Now, the Ideon has a link to another race, and that is called the Buff Clan. Now, the Buff Clan come from a different Earth, much like to where Cosmo and the Solar Ship people come from. They come from Earth. They come from a different form of Earth. So they actually check out this event that happens, in which Cosmo and 2 other people go and basically pilot the Ideon. Well, actually 4. But that's besides the point. They find this piece of work, and all of a sudden, after killing a few that's my other cat, Feral. Aside from that, what they do is they accidentally kill a few people on the fly, and what happens is it starts an all-out war. Now, the funny thing is about this is that it comes to a point which is so bad that even the Earth does not want to be part of this. That's how bad the series becomes. And it's not because of the fact that the war between them and the Buff Clan is so intense. It's just that the Soul Ship is somewhat like the Grim Reaper, In the case of it, constantly running away from the Buff Clan, they basically do not want to deal with the Buff Clan. And since in a nutshell, they have to fight in order to, get some breathing room. It basically just gets down to a point where the end is very horrible and very tragic. Now, originally, the series had 43 episodes, but as the show progressed, it had to cut the series down to 39. But there was hope, though. There were two movies that actually came out during and after the series. The first movie is called The Contact, or A Contact. Yes, Ideon had two movies. The first one was A Contact. The second one was called Be Invoked. Now, what I can possibly tell is that A Contact is basically a catch-up movie. It basically summarizes what's been happening through perhaps the first half of the series. Whereas Be Invoked actually shows parts of the other four. It made some new animation just to compensate for the four missing episodes that were quote unquote 43. So basically it was like 41, 42, 41, 40, 41, 42, and 43. So technically, because the ending was so, I don't know, it was so messed up because, quote unquote, they couldn't understand one another. They couldn't understand one another, so therefore, consider that Ide was like God. And basically, this force was driving them. It caused people to go mad or crazy, give them visions and whatnot. And what they had in their hands, what the solo ship had, I should say, was that they had an ultimate weapon of mass destruction, and they didn't realize it. For you see, what you see in this picture here is called the Wave Leader Gun, or the Ideon Hado Gun. I like the Ideon Hado Gun much better than the Wave Leader Gun. But the Hado Gun is basically that of shooting a mighty beam, which can basically, in turn, cause a vacuum, and whatever's inside can get blown to hell and back up. The Ideon also has the Ideon sword, which is basically the hands of the Ideon turn into swords of light, and its power is so awesome, so great, so terrifying that it can cleave a planet in half. Aside from firing tons and tons of missiles and whatnot, the Ideon is, to this day, the most badass mech in the known universe. And to this day, it is still quite the most messed up anime of all time. Because there have been so many deaths throughout the series. Kids were dying. Little kids were dying on the show. I mean, anybody who was anybody just died. Even Tomino himself died. He died in the movie, I believe, but still. That's how Kill 'Em All Tomino got his motif. That's how Tomino got his motif, Kill 'Em All Tomino. Because basically, that's how if a series was going that bad, that's how he was going to end it. He was going to end it just like that. Just like, okay, well, you die, you die, you die, you die, you die, and You know, everybody dies. There you go. I recently finished watching the series, and I had to say, it is probably the most messed up anime of all time. I mean, there have been many other horrific anime, and I'll get to that pretty soon. But with this, I have to say, Ideon was the most messed up anime I could possibly think of, and for it to be like in the 1980s, it couldn't be like what Gundam was. I mean, Gundam had deaths, but their deaths were signified. Consider that Ideon was like, okay, we have a super god machine, so therefore we're going to use this, and yet people are going to get destroyed. So on top of that, Ideon was basically just was that messed up. I'm not gonna lie, but considering that this was an old anime, two movies were made, and it has earned a spot in the universe of Super Robot Tyson. In Alpha 3, you can indeed get the Ideon, and of course, you can get a bad ending depending on what your choice is going to be. What choices you make. I mean, I will go into the next horrific anime, in my opinion, because in this case, why am I doing this is it's not just because horror meaning monsters only. No, no, no. Horror in this case can mean a whole lot of different things. In this case, we're talking about a massive war that, in this case, nobody won. The Buff Clan didn't win. Those of the solo ship didn't win. It was a massive suicide. So in the end, their spirits came together. Every soul from both sides were brought together by two pure, innocent lives. One is Piper Lou, and the second is Messiah. Messiah is the son of Bess, Jordan, and Kerala. So technically, those two children led the way for salvation for both sides to a new planet. More likely is going to be, I believe, reincarnation. Everybody was going to be reincarnated. But really, it's a sad, sad thing when just a little misunderstanding could cause such a massive war that no side was actually victorious. So, Densetsu Kyojin Ideon, or Space Runaway Ideon, has earned its way in the top 10 horror anime of all time. So with that, join me next time as we look into another horrific anime, possibly in the later years of anime. So I've been the Tenkaichi of gaming and otaku, and this was a retro review of Space Runaway Ideon. See you for the next exciting review.